In a world where almost everyone is constantly connected, there exists a quiet group of people who choose not to participate. They don't scroll endlessly. They don't post updates. They don't measure their lives through likes, comments, or views. At first glance, this choice often looks strange. People assume they are antisocial, disconnected, or out of touch. But psychology tells a very different story. People who don't use social media are not avoiding connection. They are often protecting it. Modern social platforms are designed around stimulation, rapid rewards, emotional spikes, comparison loops, and artificial urgency. For some minds, especially reflective or sensitive ones, this constant noise doesn't feel entertaining, it feels intrusive. These individuals tend to experience the world internally before reacting to it externally. They process emotions slowly, deeply, and privately. And because social media rewards speed over depth, expression over reflection, many of them instinctively step away. Psychologically, this behavior is often linked to high self-awareness. People who don't use social media are less likely to define their identity through external validation. Their sense of worth comes from internal consistency rather than public reaction. They don't need to announce their happiness for it to feel real. They don't need to document their struggles for them to matter. This doesn't mean they don't care about others. It often means they care more selectively. Social media compresses relationships into shallow signals. Likes, emojis, short comments. For some people, that compression feels dishonest. They prefer fewer connections, but deeper ones. Conversations that are slow. Presence that is uninterrupted. Attention that is not divided. Another psychological pattern common in people who avoid social media is a strong need for cognitive clarity. Endless feeds overload the brain with fragmented information, headlines without context, opinions without reflection, outrage without resolution. Over time, this fragments attention and increases anxiety. People who value mental calm notice this quickly, so they disengage, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of self-regulation. Interestingly, many people who don't use social media report higher tolerance for boredom. And boredom, psychologically, is not a weakness. It is a gateway to creativity, long-term thinking, and emotional integration. When there is no feed to scroll, the mind turns inward. Thoughts connect, ideas stretch, emotions surface and resolve instead of being distracted away. This is why many artists, thinkers, and introspective individuals either limit or completely avoid social platforms. Their minds require uninterrupted space to function at their best. There is also a subtle emotional maturity at play. Social media thrives on performance, presenting a version of yourself that is optimized for attention. People who don't participate often feel uncomfortable turning their lives into content. They experience their identity as something lived, not displayed. They don't want an audience for every moment. They want meaning. And perhaps most importantly, people who don't use social media are often deeply aware of how comparison erodes well-being. Seeing thousands of curated lives daily distorts perception. Even when we know it's filtered, the emotional brain still compares. Over time, this comparison quietly breeds dissatisfaction. Choosing not to engage is not ignorance, it is emotional intelligence. Of course, this path is not always easy. People who avoid social media are often misunderstood. They are questioned, pressured, sometimes even excluded. But psychologically, they tend to develop stronger internal boundaries. They learn to be alone without feeling lonely. They learn to enjoy silence without escaping it. They learn to live without narrating every moment. And in a world addicted to attention, that is a rare form of freedom. This video is not an argument against social media. It is an observation of choice. Some minds need constant stimulation, others need space. Some people find connection through screens, others find it through presence. If you've ever felt out of place for not using social media, for choosing calm over visibility, you are not broken. You are simply wired differently. And difference, psychologically, is not a flaw. It is a signal. If this perspective resonated with you, consider subscribing to The Inner Observer. This channel explores the psychology of quiet minds, unseen patterns, and the inner worlds that modern life often overlooks. You don't need to be louder to be understood. Sometimes the most powerful clarity comes from stepping away from the noise,